More you know. Knowing's half the battle. Learned that from G.I. Joe. And then we gotta autopsy the thing. Find out what went wrong. Hey, you guys wanna see what a setback looks like? Gang, I just saw myself in the mirror. You gotta warn somebody when they're dressed up like the Hamburglar. Welcome back to Between the Sharks. You may notice this large box. What's in the box? It's a gas tank. Not for this vehicle though. It's for our little red Jeep. And to get that gas tank in that Jeep, not on my back, we gotta do the thing. Move junk to work on junk, or as I call it, the full junk shuffle. There we go. Yeah, she's on the move. Keep going. You guys may recognize this little Jeep behind me. It's been a blast. We've been driving the pants off it, but if you notice, the top is still on, and yet it is absolutely, you hear the breeze? Look at the trees, okay? All right, you see what I'm saying here? Spring has gone and sprung. Summer is like knocking on the door. It's beautiful out here. So this is one of the most fun cars I've ever driven in my life. Don't care what anybody says. If you don't have one, I highly recommend you go get one. And I'm talking like YJ or earlier, in my own humble opinion. Now the thing is, she started leaking gas like 3 weeks ago. And well, that's not good. It's the original tank, so whatever, we'll swap it out. That's what's in the box. Now, the problem is there enough gas left in it to just get it back there? And she's not leaking right now. So I'm thinking the answer is maybe not. And obviously we don't want to put gas into it because, well, we have to take the gas tank out, and getting bathed in gasoline is just no fun. Oh yeah, and this battery's almost 7 years old. So not feeling great about it. Not feeling great about it. We're gonna do it anyway. Ooh. That battery sounds tired. I don't know what I expect to happen here. I already know it's probably out of gas. Come on, bud. I mean, the gasometer says there's still some fuel. Whoa. Hey, you hear that? Give it 3 more of those. Hey. All right. I'll take it. Now the thing is, you might say, hey, you're parked in there, fella. You've got a trooper right on your butt, and you got a Jimmy right in front of you. And to you I say, this Jeep's turning radius, I bet I might be able to even turn it around in the driveway. There we go. Little feller. Dog. Is this your car too? Alright. This thing just feels tiny. but the track's wider than I thought. I was scooched way over to this side. I don't know what's going on, but this is our fuel leak right here. Anybody want to give me the over-under on, is this a hardware all metric or standard? Thinking it's gonna be metric. All right, for all three of you fellers that watch every video, let's just do a little timeline, because I don't know when I'm gonna get around to editing it. This is like, it's Wednesday, Power Tour starts on Monday, like leaves town, boogieing for the Carolinas. I'm starting this project. Yep, that's what I'm doing. Gang, you got to remind me to use these. This is certainly a job for one. I did not use this when I did the work on the Jimmy, and I am still finding hardware that I did not put back into that vehicle. I need to get something on the ground too. I tell you what, gasoline will just remove any coating from just about anything. And I don't know what I just did, but like now it's really, look at that. I've been under here a minute and now it's becoming the ooze. Like it wasn't doing that a minute ago. Starting to get the distinct impression that our armor here is in fact our gas tank holder inner. I'm gonna be prepared for this thing to come crashing down by putting something less far than the ground in its way. Gang, this is what we in the business call not good. No bueno. All right, let's hypothesize here, because right now I just drove it for like 2 seconds and suddenly we've got a major kind of leaky situation. Now I can't see it coming off at the top here, but I'm starting to feel like maybe what we have is the return line to the tank that is leaky, and now that we have run it, it has created a vacuum that is now dripping. Or maybe it's just a good old-fashioned hole. We're gonna find out though. We will find out. This needs to be dealt with. This is a ton of gas, and not gonna pretend like this is not a problem. Not only in general, but also like being in the shop. So I gotta solve this relatively quickly, but just for anybody that's dealing with a gas tank, let's just go over, whoa, here I am. Let's go over what you need to deal with before you drop one. So, you need to be looking for your fuel lines, right? Ours are up there on the top. They run over somewhere this way. The filler section is gonna come in and you're gonna see like a hose clamp or something somewhere. And then you're gonna have a connection, something like that one right there, for your sending unit and whatever ground and whatnot goes to your fuel tank. Fuel pump, sometimes the pump is actually in the tank. That is not the case on this car. But again, all the wiring would be the same. So that's what you're looking for. Sets of fuel lines running in, filler neck, wiring. Because now, outside of the filler neck piece and the possible vent that's attached to the filler neck, depending on how old your car is, there should be enough slack on everything else to lower it down. An operative word there is should be. There probably isn't. So you're gonna be in a precarious position and then have to like jostle that stuff. So be prepared. Hose clamps come in several forms: flathead, Phillips head, nut, and sometimes they need pliers or some kind of clampy device because they're spring loaded one types. And this spider is having a snack while getting high on gasoline fumes. But I'm pretty convinced now if I pull these last couple bolts on this metal plate, the whole tank's just gonna come down. And I think it has like 6 gallons of gas in it. And that's gonna be heavy. All right, team, that is a significant amount of fuel so far. And yes, our Protectomatic thing is indeed our holder-upper thing as well. Way to go, multitasking unit. Now there's 3 bolts on the inside, so I'm gonna go try to jam on those guys, and I figured I'd just let you watch the whole thing live in case calamity ensues. Did I just lose my wrench? Anybody? I just went and got it. What on earth? Gang, maybe I'm high on gas fumes already. What happened? Oh, I left it on the thing. That makes sense. I'm trying to be better about safety glasses, and I will say in this particular case, ever since that you know, pretty unfortunate thing to happen to old Jay Leno there. I am particularly more cautious now than I have been in the past around fuel. Now, I understand it was a steam car and there was a pilot light, but it's a lot of fuel dripping there, guys, and that means there's a lot of vapor because it's very hot in here. And I really don't think it'll take all that much. That's why I have all the doors open. I'm trying to ventilate everything. Four-wheeler kids are getting after it. You guys have four-wheeler kids terrorizing your neighborhood? I mean, having a really good time in your neighborhood? Did you guys see that? That just dropped right out of there. Good thing I put all these doohickeys to hold it up. Well, that's stuck forever. The fill tube things are, if you ever take a gas tank off kind of for the first time, not kind of for the first time, for the first time. I mean, not your first time, but like car's first time. They can be pretty well stuck on there. The situation we seem to have here is this snakes up to the fender and then to the gas cap, which is behind the license plate on these Jeeps. What I'm trying not to do is to split it wide open because I don't exactly know how long it would take me to get another one, but this feels unusual in that, like, what I'm used to is a metal filler neck with a little coupler. This is not that kind of situation. Spray WD-40 on it because that helps sometimes break these rubber things loose, like it helps the rubber relax. So those two things are done. Now we have all the stuff on the top of the tank, which is sending unit. Oh no, I had disconnected that. So what do we have? We should have the fuel lines, the return, and then whatever the Jeep, you know, don't spill fuel when you're flipped over, apparently only spill fuel when you're right side up kind of situation. The thing to do now is to take out your old pocket computer and snap a picture or two, because it's pretty critical to get the return line back on the return line slot and the not so return line, the fuel feed line, that's the one, to the right spot as well. It's interesting, I'm actually not seeing the leak that I thought. I thought I was gonna see a return line leak just because the way it seemed to be siphoning. I'm not 100% sure what this is, but I think that it has something to do with the flipper over mechanism that, you know, is a safety feature, but I don't know. But none of the clamps on here are reusable. So before I dive into breaking all of that, I'm gonna take a look at the new gas tank and just make sure we're generally speaking, you know, dealing with something similar. Generally similar. It looks pretty similar. It actually is a very nice gas tank. It's got these two little doodads, which I don't know if they're exactly the same, but I think I can make it work. It's got the regular ring style thing, came with the gasket. That actually looks like the correct size. One lesson I've learned so far, if you are working on one of these Jeeps in your driveway, you need, if you have stock tires, you need 4.5 inches worth of material to land this thing on, because, nope, wait, 3.5, 5 inches worth of material, because that's all the room that I had in the lines to drop this thing down before it was hanging on the lines. And I'm pretty sure that's standard because I had to cut out the original clamps on the far side of the tank. We'll replace them with hose clamps, but that tells me this is the original tank. It's never been out, it's never been apart. At some point in this endeavor, I had gloves on, but I can tell that I don't right now because I am bleeding from several places that would have been covered by gloves. All right, I'm gonna fight these gas lines out. I'm gonna tell you a little story about the Blazer, the big Blazer. I was fighting this intermittent problem where it would ultimately like buck and kick, and it would get power and then lose power and get power, then lose power. And under the worst circumstances, like if I stomped the gas, it would stall. And then it immediately fired back up, right? It would go away for a while and then it would happen again. And sometimes it was after I'd been driving, sometimes it was on the highway. It never really made a whole lot of sense. And man, I was convinced it was the distributor. So I swapped 2 different distributors and I thought, you know, this has got to be, I got to be losing power, like electricity power, somewhere along the line intermittently with a loose connection. And I chased and I chased and I chased and I chased. I'd replaced the gas tank, I'd replaced the fuel pump, I'd cleaned out the carburetor several times, done rebuilds on it, and it just kept happening. And then eventually, I don't even know what I was doing, but I noticed one day that one of the fuel lines coming off the tank, the rubber lines, looked wet. I thought, well, that's weird. So I checked it, and it was so old and cracked. What I was assuming was happening was that as it got saturated with fuel, as the fuel was getting pulled through at a higher rate of speed, there was enough cracking in there that it was pulling air in from the outside. So basically, the air bubbles were making it to the fuel pump. It was sending air into the carburetor. It would pop and buck and stall and whatever until enough fuel kind of caught up. I replaced that fuel line. Never happened again. The more you know, knowing's half the battle. Learned that from G.I. Joe. Please enjoy this moment of dog, brought to you by Dog. That's out. I gotta clean this up. This will take the sealer right off the floor. Anything I just lay on it will get stuck to the floor permanently as it evaporates. So then we gotta get this fuel out of there. I think there's, I don't know, gallons left for sure. I actually lowered the lift, dragged it out because it's pretty heavy. I didn't want to spill gasoline all over myself if I could avoid it, and I did. And then we got to autopsy the thing, find out what went wrong. There was probably 6 gallons of gas in there. I think we recovered about 5. It's also full of dirt from the top of the tank, so I guess we got to filter that before we put it back in because, you know, I don't see anything super obvious as to where it came from. I mean, this is the most suspicious because it was leaking off down and running off that way, which is this way. So I don't know. It's strange to me that this tank doesn't have a petcock being what it is, but what it is a Jeep. So I could see the need maybe. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The new tank doesn't have one either, so I do have to clean this up because clearly we don't want mud and whatever else is in here rusting the new tank, which is, it's interesting. It really may have rusted from the outside in because of this. And then we got to salvage the sending unit and all of that jazz. All right, so at some point, I think as early as the 70s, this became the new style of gas tank, where there's this ring that slides in and you have to kind of hammer it with a flathead screwdriver and like turn it this way. The old version was like a cork gasket and a bunch of screws. They both have their issues. So we're gonna knock this thing out. The sending unit was working, so we're gonna reuse it. But there is an O-ring, and I'll show you when we install it, but it's important because basically anywhere your sending unit is, guys, you got to seal it in the top because water will get in there. You know, like we have the top off this thing all summer, so things can leak through in the top. Pickup trucks, if you have them under the bed, they can leak through and the water will pool up, and eventually, if you don't have it sealed, it will get into the tank, and that is bad news. Because if water in your gas wasn't bad enough, well, ethanol is hydroscopic. It will soak it up like a sponge, which makes it even more worser. Hey, you guys want to see what a setback looks like? So the sock that goes on the end of the tube is now toast. It is in many pieces. It is very brittle. So we don't want to operate without one, that's for sure. This is way too much work to skip that step. We don't have one. I gotta go see if I can order one and how long it will take to get here, and if this is going to require a whole sending unit. 98.67% chance the answer is yes. Poo. Hours have passed. I did some research, went through O'Reilly's website, trying to find a replacement for this. This part is available from different distributors online, I found, but none of them that I could get within, well, before I leave for Power Tour, and I'm not leaving this here. We're going to improvise. I purchased this. It's going to serve essentially the same function, keep the large size turds out of the fuel line. It is part number this. This is a 7/16 OD and our fuel line is 3/8, so it doesn't really fit. So I'm gonna take the tiniest drill bit I have, I'm gonna drill a tiny hole, I'm gonna put a cotter pin through it. It should not obstruct the fuel flow to any degree, and if the sock works the way that it's supposed to, then no large size turds will get stuck against the cotter pin. We got to make our choices, right? Outside of this, it's an epoxy that will ultimately dissolve. It is baling wire, zip ties, that type of thing. Nothing wrong with any of that. I think this is the best of our bad solutions because we're not going to wait. All right, that's one little prong of the Jimmy Jam cotter pin through the thing. You know, it's gonna be fine. It'll be fine. Better than no sock at all. So we got to jam this thing back in. Well, no, not back in, into the new tank. Uh-oh, gang, sun's going down, brain's turning off. All right, O-ring goes in first, sending unit, little locking ring. Dog is losing her dog mind. You come back? O-ring, sending unit, locking ring. This sending unit had two little clocking things that went in only one spot on the gas tank. If not, just clock it about right where your fuel line in and out are pointed toward the fuel lines that go off to the car. It's about that simple. Check the rear axle, the gear oil while I was in there. Got just enough on myself to smell like sulfur, but it's actually okay. There's a lot of wall uriners. Like, check the sway bar out. That ought to be attached to something. Oh, that thing, that's where it ought to be attached. The leak appeared to be on the bottom of the tank, so let's not fix it if it ain't broke right now, because the wall you're in there train will take you to the wrong city sometimes, if that's a thing that's an analogy or a metaphor. I don't know. It's late, guys. But don't worry, I still got company. Another inconvenient truth, ladies and gentlemen. I noticed that this had a ragged edge when I took the nut off of it, which is the strap that straps it to the, you know, armor plating there, which means it's broken. So I can't get it down there to cinch up. And to add insult to injury, I put anti-seize on it, and now it's all over my shirt because I've run into it like 10 times. I don't know if you guys know this about anti-seize, but it gets everywhere. I mean, everywhere. All right, gang. Sometimes things just kind of fall back into place and just click right in like they're supposed to. And sometimes it takes a lot of force, misery, and grunting. This was the second kind, but she's back in. I'm gonna leave it on the lift tonight because I am bushed and they got a phrase for that. We'll give it hell tomorrow. Anyway, I'm gonna call it. I think it might rain a little, so I'm trying to drag the T in underneath this thing. That's gonna be a blast. Gang, I just saw myself in the mirror. You gotta warn somebody when they're dressed up like the Hamburglar, you know, like with the mask and the whole thing. We gotta have each other's backs here. Gonna throw some gas in this thing. I'm gonna do my best to not jostle it around. I usually would use a paper paint filter if I'm just, you know, if I know there's a little bit of crud in here, which I do, but I'm hoping it mostly settled overnight. I'm gonna pour real slow like. I just need enough gallons basically to get to, it's pouring all over me. I need enough fuel in there to get to the gas station. All right, so we got like 3 gallons in there. I probably spilled, you know, 1/4 of a gallon, but so far so good, it's not leaking, which to me that's a pretty good sign because the fuel inlet was probably the most suspect part of the whole system. There's still something weird going on. Well, originally when we got it, there was something weird going on with the rollover valve kind of whole thing. We'll see if we still have that or not. I bet we probably do because there's nothing in the gas tank really related to that. But I think we got enough to test drive it straight to a gas station and fill her up and see what happens. I'm not expecting, well, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say a thing. The dog is kind of a motorhead, so we'll see how long it takes for her to show up. She's asleep in the yard somewhere. Okay, no cranking. Look who's showing up. All right, we got dog all safety harnessed in. Right, dog? All right. Go for a little quick jaunt to the gas station. Brought a little dog leash in case we gotta hoof it back. Here we go. All right, we got it all filled up at this point, so I guess we're gonna call it a success. We'll check for leaks when we get back home. There was no leaks while I was filling it up. I would have loved to just kind of point that out on camera. I don't know if you guys have been to a BP lately, but for some reason, they just accost you with loud, terrible music, commercials, sound clips, news bites, all the things that I avoid on a regular basis. They like force me to have those in my face while I pump gas, so I couldn't bring you along. But anyway, so far so good. Usually the issues with a gas tank are the manhandling of it, not so much, you know, issues after the fact. So we got the Jeep up and running. Dog seems satisfied. It's the greatest dog ever. All right, good luck on your projects out there. We'll see you next time on Between the Sharks. We got another thing crossed off the list, another vehicle back ready for daily service. It's pretty good news.